WWE has always pushed the limits of what could happen inside the ring, but every so often, the spectacle went too far. An injury, a tragedy, or a scandal so big that it forced the company to rewrite its own rules. These are the moments that changed everything. 1994, the steroid trial. The first turning point came in 1994, when WWE's biggest battle wasn't inside the ring at all. It was in a courtroom. The U.S. government took Vince McMahon to trial, accusing him of distributing steroids to his wrestlers. For years, WWE's stars looked like comic book heroes. Towering physiques, shredded muscles, bodies that seemed almost unreal. But now, the illusion was cracking under the harsh light of federal scrutiny. Even though Vince was ultimately acquitted, the damage was irreversible. The trial forced WWE to take the first real step in regulating the health of its talent. Enter the wellness policy, a testing system aimed at curbing performance-enhancing drugs and keeping the company from collapsing under public pressure. It wasn't perfect, not even close, but it was a landmark moment. For the first time, WWE superstars weren't just being judged on their look or their size. They were being tested, monitored, and held to a standard that changed how the company operated. Imagine being a wrestler who had built their career on size alone, suddenly being told that the game had changed. The steroid trial didn't just save WWE from government oversight. It reshaped the entire culture of the locker room, and it set the stage for an era where controversy inside the ropes was nothing compared to the chaos waiting outside of it. 1997, Stone Cold's neck injury. Fast forward to 1997. At SummerSlam, Stone Cold Steve Austin faced Owen Hart in a match that should have been another stepping stone in his rise to superstardom. Instead, it became one of the most infamous injuries in WWE history. During a routine spot, Owen delivered a sit-down pile driver, but his positioning was off. Austin's head was driven straight into the mat, snapping his neck instantly. The crowd fell silent as Austin struggled just to move. Somehow, he finished the match, even rolling Hart up for a pin. But backstage, the reality hit. His career had nearly ended right there. That one botched move forced WWE to act. The pile driver, once a staple of pro wrestling, was now considered too dangerous. From that point on, the move was mostly banned in WWE, with only a select few, like The Undertaker with his tombstone, trusted to perform it safely. Think about that for a second. An entire class of wrestling's most devastating finishers vanished overnight because of one mistake. Austin would battle lingering injuries for the rest of his career, but his accident created a precedent. Some risks simply weren't worth taking. This was the moment WWE realized that even the toughest men in the business weren't invincible. And from here on, safety first started to become more than just a slogan. 1997, the Montreal Screwjob. Just months after Austin's neck injury, WWE was shaken again. But this time, it wasn't about safety, it was about trust. Survivor Series 1997, Montreal, Canada. Bret Hart was defending the WWF Championship against Shawn Michaels. What happened next would become one of the most infamous finishes in wrestling history. As Bret locked Shawn into his own signature move, the sharpshooter, referee Earl Hebner, suddenly called for the bell. Bret hadn't tapped, he hadn't submitted, but Vince McMahon had ordered the match stopped anyway, double-crossing his own champion on live TV. Fans were outraged. Bret was furious, spitting on Vince before trashing ringside equipment. And in that instant, the lines between scripted entertainment and reality blurred forever. The fallout was massive. Wrestlers began demanding contract protections, clauses that guaranteed creative control or ensured they couldn't be blindsided in the same way. But maybe even bigger than that, the Screwjob gave birth to the Mr. McMahon character, the corrupt, manipulative boss who would define WWE's Attitude Era. Without Montreal, there's no Austin versus McMahon, no Stone Cold Rebellion, and maybe no Attitude Era as we know it. The Screwjob didn't just change contracts, it changed the balance of power between wrestlers and management, rewriting the way authority was portrayed in the ring. 1998, Mick Foley's Hell in a Cell fall. If Montreal was about control, 1998 was about chaos. King of the Ring, Undertaker versus Mankind, and one of the most jaw-dropping sights in WWE history. Mick Foley was thrown from the top of the Hell in a cell structure, crashing through the announce table below. The crowd thought the match was over, but unbelievably, Foley got up, climbed back to the top, and moments later, was chokeslammed through the cell itself, crashing to the ring in a heap. Fans were stunned. Commentator Jim Ross screamed, "Good God Almighty, they've killed him." Foley somehow survived, but the stunt had gone too far. Behind the curtain, WWE realized they couldn't let this happen again. From then on, the cell structure was reinforced, and stunt planning became stricter. No more free falls from the top. No more taking risks without a clear safety net. Did it make matches less dangerous? Sure. But Foley's near-death experience forced WWE to admit that the pursuit of shock value had real-life consequences. The Attitude Era thrived on pushing boundaries, but after that night, those boundaries had to be redrawn. 1999, Droz' paralysis. In October 1999, a SmackDown taping turned tragic. Darren Drozdov, better known as Droz, was wrestling D'Lo Brown when a routine powerbomb went horribly wrong. The landing was awkward, his neck absorbed the full impact, and in an instant, he was paralyzed from the neck down. Accidents were always part of the business, but this one cut especially deep. Droz wasn't taking a risky stunt off a ladder or going through a table. He wasn't in a dangerous hardcore match. It was a standard wrestling move, something fans saw every week, and that made it even scarier. If something this ordinary could go wrong, then no one in the locker room was truly safe. In the aftermath, WWE quietly began shifting its approach. More emphasis was placed on in-ring safety and proper training, with certain moves being limited or banned altogether if they couldn't be performed with absolute control. Agents started tightening the reins on what wrestlers could do in routine matches, making sure nothing reckless slipped through just for the sake of a pop. It was a stark reminder, even the basics could be dangerous. And WWE knew it needed to step in before another career was lost. 1999, Owen Hart's death. The tragedy struck again just months later, this time on live pay-per-view. At Over the Edge, 1999, Owen Hart was set to descend from the rafters as his Blue Blazer character. The stunt was meant to be comedy. Instead, disaster. Owen's harness malfunctioned, sending him plummeting 78 feet into the ring. The fall was fatal. Fans in attendance were horrified, and the broadcast went on. But the industry would never be the same. WWE immediately banned all high-risk stunts involving harnesses and aerial descents. What once seemed like spectacle was now a grim reminder that no pop from the crowd was worth a human life. And this is where it's worth pausing, because these tragedies are part of why WWE looks so different today. The guardrails, the safety checks, the rules that sometimes frustrate fans, they exist because of moments like this. If you're finding this deep dive into wrestling history as fascinating as we are, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Because trust me, the events we've covered so far, they're only the beginning. 2004, Eddie Guerrero's blade job. At Judgment Day 2004, Eddie Guerrero walked into the ring as WWE Champion, defending against JBL in a match that looked brutal on paper, and turned out even more brutal in reality. Midway through the fight, Eddie went for a blade job, the classic wrestler's trick to sell a moment of high drama with blood. But this time, something went wrong. The cut was far too deep. Instead of a trickle, blood came gushing out almost immediately. Within moments, Eddie wasn't just bleeding, he was drowning in it. His face turned into a crimson mask, his chest and arms smeared red, and the mat beneath him looked like something out of a horror film. Even referee Nick Patrick's gloves were soaked as he tried to check on Eddie. The live crowd, who usually cheered at the sight of a little color, fell half silent. Shock replaced excitement. This wasn't just entertainment anymore. This felt dangerous. Backstage, officials were scrambling, debating whether to call the match off. But Eddie, being Eddie, refused to quit. He fought on, stumbling, bleeding, gasping for air, all while delivering suplexes and taking shots from JBL. It was heroic, but also unsettling. Fans didn't know if they were watching scripted violence or a man genuinely putting his life on the line. And that's why the moment mattered. WWE had always relied on blood to heighten drama. A well-timed blade job made matches feel raw, real, and unforgettable. But Eddie's accident showed the ugly side of that tradition. It was more than drama. It was unsafe, out of control, and impossible to ignore. After that night, the company started pulling back on blade jobs. And a few years later, with the launch of the PG era, intentional blading was outright banned. In one match, Eddie Guerrero didn't just defend his championship. He shed enough blood to change WWE's approach to violence forever. 2007, Chris Benoit tragedy. Nothing shook WWE or wrestling as a whole like the Chris Benoit tragedy in 2007. At first, fans thought Benoit had just missed a show, but the truth was far darker. He had murdered his wife and son before taking his own life. The industry was stunned. WWE even ran a tribute show that Monday night, but within 24 hours, as details emerged, they erased him completely. His name disappeared from highlight reels, merchandise, and any Hall of Fame talk. But this wasn't just about erasing Benoit. It forced WWE to confront what their business was doing to people. Years of punishing schedules, untreated concussions, and silence around mental health had taken a toll. Benoit's autopsy revealed severe brain damage, sparking a wider conversation across sports. WWE responded by strengthening their wellness policy, investing in concussion research, and banning chair shots to the head. What once was a guaranteed crowd pleaser suddenly became taboo. This wasn't just a new rule, it was a cultural shift. For the first time, fans and wrestlers alike had to ask themselves, was the spectacle worth the cost? 2008, PG era begins. In the aftermath of Benoit's death and the wave of public scrutiny that followed, WWE knew it had to change. The company's old formula of shock value, blood, and edgy storylines wasn't just controversial anymore. It was dangerous for business. By 2008, WWE made its most drastic shift yet, officially rebranding into a PG-rated product. This wasn't just a tweak, it was a full identity change. Gone were the chair shots to the head, the casual profanity, and the risque storylines that once defined the attitude and ruthless aggression eras. In their place came brighter production values, family-friendly characters, and a style of wrestling that corporate sponsors and television partners felt safe backing. For longtime fans, it felt like the company had cut out its own heart. The danger, the unpredictability, the rawness, it all seemed watered down. But for WWE executives, the trade-off was clear: mainstream stability and long-term survival over short-term chaos. This new era gave rise to stars who thrived in the PG environment, like John Cena, The Miz, and later on, Roman Reigns. It also opened the door to massive sponsorship deals and billion-dollar TV contracts, something the blood-soaked product of the past could never have achieved. Whether you loved it or hated it, the PG shift marked the true turning point. WWE was no longer a counterculture rebellion thumbing its nose at society. It was a polished entertainment empire built to last. Every era of WWE was shaped by moments that changed the rules forever. Some were tragic, some were explosive, but all of them left scars on the wrestlers, on the fans, and on the business itself. So here's the question: which of these turning points do you think changed WWE the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into wrestling history.